today are not the same as you had compared after the USC loss. How would you compare just the film session that took place, the vibe around the team this time compared to how it was right after the USC loss?
Yeah, I think it was disappointing because I think our guys know we were so close to victory. And what I showed the guys today was when you win most of the statistical categories, but the most important things in football are owning the football and then winning situational football. And you look at third downs, you look at red zone scoring, and you look at the turnovers, and that's the game. The other 85, 90% of the game, we won, but we didn't win the areas that mattered. And that's really what I told them was winning football looks a certain way. And in those moments, in the third downs and the fourth downs and the low red, is when we made our biggest mistakes, and they played their best. So that's what we got to do if we want to win football games.
Chris Cartman, Son of a Source. Kenny, you've compared this to your first year at Florida State, and I was just wondering if you could outline a lot of the similarities as you see them, how that can help you moving forward, and what you communicate about that to the team.
Yeah, a lot of similarities just in terms of that was actually the COVID year, so a lot of guys were out as well, and we've been battling some injuries up front and some injuries now on defense, quarterback, and kind of all over, running back, all over a little bit. So being able to adapt and change, maybe not do exactly what you did in the spring or the fall, but being able to try to change and adapt. I mean, I'm a run game guy. That's what I've always done, and I think we ran the ball 4 times in the second half, but that was to the strength of our football team versus that team in that game, which is different. And it may be uncomfortable for staffs to do, but it's something you need to do. So I would say that. I would say the ability to face tough losses and have to respond and understand that this is a process and you have to learn how to win again. And I think that goes back to the last question is we have to learn how to win. And what is learning how to win? Winning is the key aspect of winning is responding. Our guys are responding. From earlier in the year to now, there's a drastic different look in kids' eyes, in the team's eyes. Defense on 4th and 1 on the 1 yard line, the response. But now it is in the big critical moments, right? Those big situations, we have to start taking pride in winning those situational football. And that was something that we didn't do early on at Florida State, that then we slowly continued to fight, continued to work, continued to fight through these tough Saturdays and tough Sundays, go back to work, and then get better at the things that matter in football. That's the effort, that's the detail, and that in-game, the situations that decide winning and losing. So that would be the comparisons.
Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic. Can you update us, Kenny, on Travion Brown's situation, and particularly how thin you are at linebacker with Shaver having quit last week, and where you go from now at that position?
Yeah, he'll be out. Length of time unknown right now, but he'll definitely be out, this week, and then we'll reassess after the bye. That position is definitely, we've lost some guys there, so other guys are going to have to step up. James came in. I mean, we had some guys come in and do a nice job in that role, so got to have some guys step up. This is a prolific offense we faced this week. They challenge you on the edge and in space, so we got to be ready to play a game in space. And linebackers are a big key to that because they try to isolate your linebackers in coverage in man and weak side safeties in man coverage with some FIB formations.
As a follow-up, can you talk about Caleb McCullough and how well he played with the time he got, maybe his best game?
Caleb was awesome. Caleb came in, and Caleb's been an incredible teammate, an incredible teamer for us, playing spot minutes at linebacker. So for him to be able to come in and play to the level he played was a huge positive for us. And we're going to lean on him and need him in these this next week and the next few weeks and throughout the year.
Hey, Coach. Blake Neiman, Cronkite Sports. Over these past 2 weeks, you fell into an early hole early into the game. What is it going to take to set that initial tone of getting on the scoreboard first, kind of build up that momentum for your team?
Yeah, we just got to, have a good opening drive. I mean, we started pretty opening drive this week. Obviously, they when we started the drive, it ended in an unfortunate way that I would not count on. I mean, we get a penalty after the first third down conversion, gets us to a 1st and 15, and then we couldn't get back out of that funk. And going into the game, like I told the guys, you can't play really sound defenses behind the chains. Right? There'll be some defenses that you can play at 2nd and 18 and respond to 2nd and 20s verse because they're aggressive. You can't do that to really sound defenses who are built upon making you take 6 yards a pop and built upon you making your own mistakes. So that was disappointing because we haven't been a penalty-driven team this year. But those penalties showed up in the first drive, and they showed up in the most critical moments of the game.
Hey, Coach. Stephen Guglielcello, AZ Sports. You have a lot of ranked teams coming up on your schedule. How do you get your team to focus on the team and not the number in front of them? Yeah,
I mean, that we're always going to be about us. It's never about an opponent. It's never about anything else. We have to educate ourselves on the strengths and weaknesses of our opponents, what they do well, what they don't do well, the style of play, like coach them. But other than that, we're focused on us. I mean, I've watched us and offensively and what players do what well and how do we put our players in the best position to be successful. And that's what the best offenses do. That's what the best defenses do. It's not scheme driven directly at your opponent. Every coordinator is going to be able to hopefully produce the most sound scheme versus your opponents. The most important thing is the effort, the detail, and making sure that you're putting your players in a position for them to be successful over the whiteboard being successful. And if you can combine both, that's great. But not every week does a defense allow you to combine both. And that's what defense's jobs are, not let you do both.
Hey, Coach. Jordan Ham, Sports 360 AZ. Can you give us an update on Jordan Clark and his timeline for return?
Honestly, that one's up in the air. I really don't know. I don't know. Jordan's a competitor. So if you ask him, he's always fine because that's his mindset. He's tough. He's physical. He's what you want. So it's questionable. That's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, Kenny, how does it feel when you're trying to put together a game plan or within games when you're probably last in the Pac-12 in explosives, the ability to hit on big plays is very, very limited, and especially against sound defenses like Cal was?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be super efficient, and that's something that, I've looked at specifically. I mean, our longest rush, I believe, is 17 yards on the season. So when you can't run the ball and hit explosive runs like that, when you're a more consistent runner, you try to be consistent in that world, you got to find more explosives. And now luckily our backs have hit some explosive passes to negate that, but we still need to be more explosive. And that's a challenge. So we got to be more creative. I got to be more creative getting our guys in space, trying to be creative with, some little few tricks and trying to pop an explosive. But we and myself have to be more creative creating those because in reality, explosive plays, if you look at the win rate for teams with explosive plays and teams that don't have explosive plays, it's one of the number one correlations to winning in the game nowadays, and we're just not having enough explosives. So I got to be more creative offensively, and I got to find ways to create those and get our guys in explosive situations.
Kind of on that topic, after USC, you said you felt like you got a little too emotional in your play calling. How would you assess how you were able to, focus on that against Cal?
Yeah, I mean, when you face a defense like that, it's kind of a boring game to call, to be honest, because they're going to do what they do. They're going to mix up their calls, and they're going to keep counterpunching. So it's really not as much about the call because they're so sound. You're not going to get them, per se. Some games it's like, oh, we got them. We're field blitzing here. We're going to check 4 verticals angle and send a 5-man slide, and the defensive end's going to have the angle route weak. Oh, got them. Right? You're not going to really get them. So you can't have the get them plays, right? The only one we tried to get them on was the throwback to Trenton, which was super close. The defensive end, who's the edge player, sprints and recognizes it. And great play by that kid. If he doesn't recognize it, we have Trenton running down the field by himself trying to create that explosive. But so that game's kind of a boring game to call from that perspective. Obviously, we got to be better in the red zone, and I got to do a better job, designing plays in the red zone so we can still run the ball or get our best guys open.
Harris Hicks, Arizona's family. Coach, last week you said, quote, "My wife is my biggest critic." I guess after a game, what's something she said that has stuck with you, whether it's funny, bad, or just honest?
I'm not going to answer that question. That's a great question, but I'm not going to answer that question. I would have to lie on my answer, so I'm not going to do that.
Coach, from a defensive standpoint, I mean, obviously playing aggressive, I know a few untimely penalties, but just overall your thought of, the defense on how they're matching up and just the intensity that they're able to build off of each game, even with a guy like Jordan being out.
Yeah, they're doing a phenomenal job defensively. Even when they bend, they're doing a really good job in red zone defense, not breaking and limiting points, right? So even when teams have elongated drives, they're still limiting the points. So they're doing a really nice job there. So I've been really pleased with our defense. Coach Ward's phenomenal. Our defensive staff's phenomenal. They are attacking and being aggressive. Still got to create more takeaways. Being through 5 games and 1 takeaway, I would bet we're 132nd or 130th in the country in creating takeaways, and that's an explosive play for defense. So right now, if you look at us, we're not explosive on offense and we're not explosive on defense because both of the explosive categories, offensively, we're turning it over too much, which we didn't as much last game, but we're not creating the explosives. Defense, we're getting sacks, but the most explosive play on defense is turnover, and we're not getting turnovers. So we're making it really hard on ourselves to win games because, once again, the areas of the field that wins games, the situations that win games, which are turnovers, third down, red zone scoring, where offensively we're struggling in some areas and defensively we're great, except the explosive plays, which is the turnover rate.
To piggyback off that real quick, though, with the way the defensive plays, and going for it on 4th down, obviously I know down distance where you are in the field, but with how they've played, with the energy they have, does it, I hate to use the word easy, but does it make it easier to make those 4th down calls, even if you're maybe a little further back than you normally would want to be on the field to go for it?
No, our third drive of the game, we go for it on 4th and 2 and get it, and then score 7 points. So there's a 7-point net. Feel like we have a good call. We're on the 38. You're not going to kick a 57-yard field goal, so you have to go for that 4th and 1. And then you're on the minus 38 on a 4th and 1.5, right, which you should convert over 75% time. We converted the last one of the other 4th and 1s. You don't convert it, it sucks. But right now, our punt game in the transitions in the punt game, a 35-yard net punt on average right now is not conducive to the risk of not converting a 4th and 1 or 2. That was an area that we're going to improve on this week is we've got to have better nets. And our special teams have been playing really, really well these last 4 weeks. We're just, other than the net punt battle, is where we're losing. And we got to fix that. And if we fix that, then yes, the aggressiveness can tamper a little bit because now I know when we get a stop defensively, we're not minus 20 yards. Right now, a punt battle is minus 15 to 20. So you may as well go for the 4th and 1.5.
Just circling back to the 2020 season, I think you used 4 quarterbacks, maybe even started 4 quarterbacks. It was very early in Jordan Travis's development. We've seen what he's become in recent years. Rashada, he's not playing now, but you're trying to push as much development into him as possible. So can you compare those situations to the quarterback?
Yeah, that's actually a really good comparison because Jordan actually got hurt early in the year. It may have been week 3. He got hurt week 3 or 4 in the year. So that's a good comparison, similar to Jaden. And then Jordan came back at the end of the year and started to flash again going into the next year. So I see, Jaden is battling to come back, and it's a very similar structure. I think Jaden has all the tools to be elite. He's got a good mindset. He's got the work ethic. Everybody knows he's got the tools. and he's got the care level. He loves this place. He loves football. So I think there is a ton of parallel between those two comparisons.
With all the struggles of the offense, maybe it's kind of lost in the mix that Elijah Badger, I think the last 2 weeks, is displaying not only the best he played all season, but maybe even better than he played last season in some respects. Can you put your finger on Elijah's play in the last 2 weeks? Well, what has become different for him that has caused him to play at this level?
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of talent, and he's really good with the ball in his hands. So when looking at him, I got to find ways to get the ball in his hands more. You know, I went back and watched games, all of his touches from last year, you know, similar to what I did with Jalen, and trying to figure out, okay, how can I get these guys that were here last year? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? I feel like I know now being here 5 games, but let me look back. And getting the ball in his hands is the key. If you look at his success, a lot of it comes post-catch. So even on the kick return game. So I think getting the ball in his hands moving forward is going to be a huge priority for us in different ways, shapes, or forms. And then trying to keep him on the field when he's fresh and not making him play, you know, if he's not fresh is going to help him.
So on that note, I mean, you still like him a kick return, especially, you know, with what he did last Saturday. As long as they want to keep him fresh, I mean, you still keep him as a primary kick return.
No question, no question. I believe we're top 10 or 15 kick. I'm not big into that stats. I never check them, but 10 or 15 kick return team in the country right now. So that's something we got to continue to build on.
Coach, just focusing on this week's opponent in Colorado, everywhere they've gone, they've pretty much kind of created some attention on themselves and kind of worked their way into other teams getting in their head. How do you guys focus on yourselves and not eliminate any unnecessary distractions this week?
Yeah, the same thing I say every week. I'm focused on our football team, and that's always going to be the answer. We're going to show back up we showed back up today, and we're going back to work. We're finding out what we can get better at, and we're going to go get better. And we're going to keep getting better and keep getting better. And this week, hopefully, we're better at situational football, and hopefully we get some takeaways, win the turnover battle for the first time all year, which we haven't done yet, and go win a football game.
Coach, can you talk about Jalen's progression and how about him climbing the tight end reception list?
Yeah, I mean, Jalen's an unbelievable pass catcher. When the ball's in the air, he does a phenomenal job. Great body control. Once again, he's great after the catch, one of the best in the country, especially big bodies after the catch. So finding ways to get him in more positions where he's in space and detached and moving around to try to be that big body pass catcher, collision catch guy, I think is a strength. So I've been pleased with his ability to catch the football and make plays with the ball in his hands, and we're going to try to capitalize on that moving forward.
Jordan, then Michelle. Hey, Coach. You went through a massive roster reconstruction this offseason, as did Colorado. You also coached against Colorado last year. When you're looking at the tape now, what's the biggest differences you're seeing that are jumping out under Coach Prime?
Yeah, they're more talented for sure. Their defensive line is good. Their skill positions are fast. They play really, really hard. They're fundamentally sound, but I think just watching them play, the biggest difference, aside from the talent, is the effort in which they play. This team plays extremely hard. This team runs to the football on defense. This team sprints up to the football on offense with tempo. These wideouts sprint to block. So I think the effort that this team plays with, combined with the talent that they've brought in, are obviously the schemes are drastically different. But those schemes are a dime a dozen. It's the culture that's being created there is one that is, we're going to play competitive. We're going to finish every play, and we're going to play with a passion, and you can see it on the tape.
Last 2 questions, Michelle, then Chris.
Yeah, Coach, you talked about when you played USC, you talked about Caleb Williams, and you can't really contain him or whatever. Now you've got Shedeur Sanders on the other side, and what is your kind of take on what you can do to minimize his damage and what he can do?
Yeah, so I actually recruited him out of high school when I was at Auburn. So I got to, meet with him on the whiteboard, and he was phenomenal, super, super smart as a 16, 17-year-old. I mean, he's just getting up there having fluent conversations. So I was super impressed. He went out on the field in an unbelievable throwing session out in the indoor when we were in a camp session. So it was unbelievable. So seeing him put it together here in college, it doesn't shock me. He's an older version of what that 17-year-old was, which is cerebral, smart, has great poise about himself. So I think that's one of his greatest skills. When you watch him back there, similar to Caleb, is he's always poised. He's very hard to get uncomfortable. He's always comfortable, and even if you hit him, he gets up, and the next play's the next play. He doesn't get rattled very easily, I would say. He's just very poised, very confident, can make every throw, extends plays. So, I mean, he's a really, 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 really good football player.
Toughness and physicality can kind of overcome some other things offensively, and you pointed to examples of other teams that do that. Scadaboo, somebody who personifies that, but just in the collective, where is this offense at in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we got to get better at. I mean, we got to be more physical. We have to give more effort. I think right now as a football team, our defense gives more effort than our offense, in my opinion. Just watching it, maybe that's me being, my mind is an offensive guy, so I'm always going to grade that probably a little harder. But I'm always looking at ways we can improve and what plays did our effort cost us. And I think there were a few plays in the game that, could have been an 8-point difference on 2 drives in the low red zone where effort wasn't there. And if the effort is there, it's an 8 points difference, and that's on me. I mean, I told the guys today, everything in this program is a reflection of me. So if somebody shows up late to a meeting, it's not your fault, it's my fault. Why are you showing up late to a meeting? Like, what is the standard that's being set in your position room? What's the standard that's being set as a program that makes you think it's okay to do that? And then I have to reassess, how do we end that? So that's everything in the program. If it's effort-based, well, then what are we doing to make kids give more effort or chase the ball? Well, this week, all of our coaches that, got a little juice to them on offense are going to sprint 10 yards after every single play with the guys after they catch it, because we need to burst after the catch. So that's what we're going to try to do to change that a little bit. But that's my job, is to try to see these problems and try to fix them.